Sarah here, the Able Diabetic, and I'd like to welcome you to my series of Christmas videos. Now, Christmas is a wonderful time of fun and merriment for everybody. For us diabetics, it does come with some additional challenges as we try and balance all of the temptations with our need to keep everything in balance. And this video is to hopefully give some hints and tips on how to do that. This particular video is on food, which obviously is all around us at Christmas, as well as all the love and good happiness stuff. And so I've just got a few things that hopefully people will find useful as guidance as they're planning Christmas time for their friends and family. So I'm going to start with the subject of starters and nibbles, all those kind of like small food thingies that come up in all kinds of different scenarios at Christmas time. And here, I must say, it's one of those awful situations that if you're faced with just a wall of things that have been based on pastry and bread, you do kind of find yourself going as a diabetic, okay, what exactly do I go for here? Because it is very easy to kind of make things quite carb central. The things that I really think that, you should try and avoid at Christmas, and that's either like, buying, putting in front of people, whatever, and ultimately eating as a diabetic, sausage rolls, breadsticks, crisps, samosas, all of those things which are, kind of essentially encased or packaged in some kind of carby substance. You end up eating an awful lot before you've even blinked. So the next question is, well, what do you eat instead of all that carb-based stuff? And my advice would be to go for a hefty amount of veg-based stuff, and I must say seafood is a particularly good thing to kind of get you out of a sticky carb diabetic situation as well. So I have a few things that I think are brilliant. Boring though some people think it is, nothing kind of makes me happier than when the dips accompanied by kind of fresh chopped up veg, carrot sticks, celery, cucumber, all that kind of stuff. Things that I can really just take a handful of, and then I'm really safe and really happy. So for me, that's brill. A friend of mine introduced me to a brilliant recipe, which is little cherry tomatoes that have been kind of dunked in vodka that has all of the Bloody Mary seasoning stuff in it. And if you leave them for a few hours, the tomatoes kind of suck up all that vodka-ness and you end up with Bloody Mary tomatoes. They're fantastic. They're really fun, easy, but also low carb. And if you do want to make things like quiche kind of things or samosa-y kind of things, I really recommend that you get acquainted with phyllo pastry and use as little of it as you possibly can for the delicious casing stuff that's in the case, or rice paper. I love Vietnamese spring rolls, and you can have tons of veg inside, wrapped inside rice paper, and you're good to go. All of those things are brill if you're a diabetic, type 1 or type 2. So on to the main event, Christmas dinner itself. Whatever you have as a kind of centre thing, whether it's turkey like we always do, or some other kind of bird or meat, or something vegetarian, there's an awful lot that ends up on the table at Christmas dinner. And it's a good idea to kind of think about that in advance if you're just trying to keep things a little bit more on the kind of not quite overindulged on the carb front, if you're thinking about your diabetic friends and family. A lot of the extras are really pretty hefty when it comes to carbs. So just try to make sure that there's not too much of that stuff is what I would suggest, and that you're definitely balancing things with lots of the good stuff so that people can kind of, make their plates a little bit more orientated to stuff that doesn't have too horrible an impact. Don't forget, pudding is just around the corner as well. So, what do I mean by that? Well, obviously, potatoes are carby, but so is stuff like bread sauce. Stuffing is almost always, very kind of heavily bread based. And then things like cranberry sauce is another spoonful of basically sugar. So, you need to be really kind of careful, because if you're going to put all those things on your plate, you are ladling up the carb count. So there's that stuff, which is kind of like really like, whoa, careful. Then there is the kind of, stuff in the middle. Things like root veg, they do actually have quite a decent amount of carbs. So things like the parsnips, maybe, 1, maybe not 3. And then carrots are included in that. And then I would also kind of warn against too much sausage stuff as well, because sausage meat often has quite a lot of additional kind of rusky, carby stuff to bolster up and make it like a sausage. So be careful about that. The good stuff is all your veg, really, or especially the green veg. So, although it's not everyone's favourite thing on the table, Brussels sprouts are fab. Red cabbage is also brilliant. And so are things like cauliflower cheese, very indulgent. Obviously, too much cheese is not good for any of us, but it's a little bit easier going on the blood sugar side of things. So quite a lot of options on the veg front. And if you have a good balance of things, so there's plenty of the good stuff, it's much easier for a diabetic to kind of self-manage and choose things that will work overall for them. If you are anything like us, by the time it comes around to the dessert bit of Christmas dinner, we don't have any room. And so everyone kind of departs to watch the telly before they actually get on to the kind of next phase. And that's got its pluses and minuses from my perspective as a type 1 diabetic. But certainly the Christmas pud zone is a real danger zone for a type 1 or a type 2 diabetic, because most of the options are pretty densely carb based. Things like Christmas pudding are absolutely laden with carbs. They're just, dense is the word. And so, you need to be pretty careful about portions and management of all of those things. I don't think there's anything really on the kind of Christmas list, even things that are kind of considered relatively light, like a pavlova. Well, a pavlova is made of sugar. So that isn't really going to work. It might have less fat and be kind of less dense, but it's still going to cause you a few problems. And things like Yule logs and so on are just like so rich and decadent, but they are not going to go down brilliantly. And I think here, it's a question of amount, and that's why you have to think about, the entire kind of day and the entire meal and all of that good stuff when you're planning things. It's really good to have alternatives so that you can kind of opt in and opt out depending on what particular bit of the kind of carb array you particularly fancy going for. Moving into the kind of, well, what are the alternatives zone? I, as I have told people many, many times before, have a particular weakness for cheese, but actually cheese is a really good option at the end of a Christmas dinner, because especially if you're careful and you don't have the crackery stuff with it, a bit of cheese, a little bit of celery, a couple of nuts and walnuts maybe, and maybe a little bit of dried fruit or some grapes. There's some carbs in that, but it's relatively light. That's a good option. It's not a good option to have loads of crackers, right? But it's a pretty good option to have a few bits of lovely cheese. So that's a great option for me. And then there are three things on the list that I would suggest as really nice desserts that are a little bit easier to deal with. They're not perfect, but they're a little bit easier. My favourite is Cranachan, which is a layered dessert. It's Scottish, and it's toasted oats and cream that has been flavoured with whiskey and honey, and then raspberries. And it's something that you layer up in kind of glasses, and you can be really generous with the raspberries, which is fantastic for us. So that's a really good option. I'd also like to give a shout out for a kind of a very, very light crumble. I make a crumble with lots of tropical fruit. I put rum on it, and then just a little light sprinkling of crumble stuff on top of it. So not hefty, just kind of a light bit to give that crunch, and that's really brilliant too. And another thing is poached pears, which are easy but look fantastic and are a real treat. You have to put a bit of effort in to make poached pears, so that's a nice thing. They're just a few suggestions, and hopefully kind of just get that kind of ideas set of, well, if we're going to go really heavy on the bread sauce, then maybe we lighten up when it comes to what's on the table at the end of the meal. So as I wrap this up, I do want to say something that I think is really important, and that is that diabetics deserve to have a good time at Christmas just like everyone else, and it really is a question of having alternatives. It's fine to eat some carbs, But it's not fine if everything you're faced with is carbs, because then it's really, really difficult to kind of negotiate the day and the season as a whole. And so really, it's great when a diabetic feels that they can have, a little bit of this and a little bit of that they wouldn't normally. But really the key is offering the alternatives that help balance things out. And that really is the kind of the master top tip. I hope everyone has a fantastic Christmas. It's a really special, special time of year. And I wish everybody a very happy and warm holiday. Thank you very much for watching this. I'm Sarah, I'm the able diabetic, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.